At 29, I'd carved out a life most would envy. A senior wealth advisor in Philadelphia with a corner office overlooking the Schuylkill River and a reputation for the keeping clients calm during market storms. But behind the tailored blazers and confident handshakes, I was someone else. Abby, the Larson family's unofficial ATM. They called me the steady one, the daughter who patched up their messes without complaint. I used to think it was my duty. Now it felt like a chain. It started small. At 22, I paid off $15,000 of my brother Ethan's gambling debts after he swore it was a one-time slip. Then came mom's shopping binges, $20,000 in credit card bills for designer bags and spa retreats, always with a tearful, "We'll pay you back, Abby." Dad was the worst. His surefire real estate deals, condos that never sold, plots that sank in legal quicksand, left me covering $45,000 in loans he'd sweet-talked me into co-signing. Over 7 years, I'd funneled over $80,000 into their chaos. My savings drained while they toasted my success at holiday dinners, never once asking if I was okay. I told myself, family is family. You don't give up. But that mantra was starting to choke me. I lived alone in a sleek high-rise near Rittenhouse Square, my nights spent poring over client portfolios or staring at the city's glow, wondering when I'd lost myself. The only person who ever saw me clearly was Grandma Clara, her hazel eyes sharp even in her final years. She'd sit me down in her Bryn Mawr cottage, pour chamomile tea, and say, "Abby, you're not their bank. You're their heart. Don't let them forget that." When she passed 2 years ago, I clung to her watercolor of a sunrise, the one thing she left just for me. It hung in my apartment, a reminder of who I could be. Last Tuesday, my phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "Dear Abby, come by the house at 6 Mai tonight. We have something special for you." My stomach knotted. Diane Larson's special surprises were rarely kind. The last one, a year ago, was a family dinner where they pressured me to co-sign a $50,000 loan for Ethan's genius sports betting app, months after his last venture tanked. I'd said no, and Mom's icy, "You're so selfish," still stung. But curiosity, and a flicker of hope, pulled me to Bryn Mawr. I parked outside the 2-story colonial I'd helped buy 4 years ago, its mortgage in Mom and Dad's names despite my down payment. Through the windows, warm yellow light spilled out, and I heard laughter. Too loud, too staged. I adjusted my coat, my breath visible in the crisp Pennsylvania air, and rang the doorbell. Mom flung the door open, her blonde hair perfect, her smile too wide. "Surprise!" she squealed, pulling me inside. The living room was packed. Uncle Tom, Aunt Ellen, Cousin Lila, faces I hadn't seen since Grandma Clara's funeral. Balloons bobbed in the corner, a banner screaming, "Happy early birthday, Abby." "You got me," I said, forcing a grin, but my eyes caught a leather folder on the coffee table, its embossed label glinting, "Clara Thompson Inheritance Trust." My heart sank. This wasn't a party. It was a trap. Mom guided me to the couch, her perfume sharp. "Sit, sweetheart," she cooed, but her gaze flicked to the folder. Dad handed me a martini. "Your favorite, lemon twist," though I'd switched to red wine years ago. I sipped it, the tang bitter, and scanned the room. Ethan lounged by the fireplace, avoiding my eyes. Something was coming, and I wasn't sure I was ready. The living room in my parents' Bryn Mawr colonial buzzed with forced cheer, the kind that masks an agenda. Balloons swayed lazily, and the "Happy early birthday, Abby" banner felt like a prop in a bad play. Relatives I hadn't seen in years, Uncle Tom nursing a beer, Aunt Ellen fussing over her purse, Cousin Lila snapping selfies, crowded the space, their smiles too tight. Mom, in a navy dress that screamed effort, steered me to the couch, her hand on my arm a little too firm. Dad hovered nearby, his grin as shaky as the martini glass he'd thrust at me. Ethan slouched by the fireplace, eyes on his phone, not me. The leather folder on the coffee table, Clara Thompson Inheritance Trust, loomed like a warning. "Abby, we're so proud of you," Mom began, her voice syrupy. "Turning 30 soon, saving the family through thick and thin." The room clapped, but it felt rehearsed. She slid the folder toward me, her nails glossy red. "Just a little paperwork, sweetheart, for Grandma Clara's estate. A tax thing, you know." Her eyes darted to Dad, who nodded too quickly. I forced a smile, my pulse quickening. "What kind of tax thing?" I asked, opening the folder. The first page stopped me cold. I, Abigail Marie Larson, hereby relinquish all rights to the Clara Thompson Inheritance Trust. My breath caught. This wasn't a formality. It was a theft. I looked up, meeting Mom's gaze. Mom, this transfers everything to a family trust, under your control. Her smile froze. Oh, Abby, it's just easier this way. You're so busy. Dad chimed in, voice strained. It's for everyone's benefit, kiddo. Ethan finally looked up, his jaw tight. Come on, Abby, don't make it weird. Just sign it. The room went still, every eye on me. Aunt Ellen coughed. Lila stopped scrolling. I flipped another page. Power of attorney, asset reallocation, all funneling Grandma Clara's estate to my parents. My hands shook, not with fear, but with clarity. This was why they'd gathered. Not for my birthday, but for my signature. Easier for who? I asked, my voice steady despite the heat in my chest. You planned this, didn't you? A party to guilt me into giving up what Grandma left me. Mom's face hardened, her charm slipping. Abigail, don't be selfish. We're family. We share everything. I laughed, sharp and hollow. Share? I've paid Ethan's debts, your bills, Dad's flops. I've shared enough. Uncle Tom shifted uncomfortably. Abby, calm down. It's not a big deal. I stood, folder in hand. It's a big deal when you trick me into signing away my future. Nora, my best friend, stepped forward from the corner, her presence a lifeline. Abby, you don't owe them this, she said, her voice low but firm. Mom snapped. This is family business, Nora. I held Nora's gaze, grateful, then turned to the room. Grandma Clara left that trust to me for a reason. I'm not signing anything until I know why. I grabbed my coat, the folder tucked under my arm. Abby, you're ruining everything, Mom called, but I was already at the door. Nora followed, her hand on my shoulder as we stepped into the cold. In her car, the suburban lights fading behind us, I clutched the folder, my mind racing. They've done this before, I said, voice low. But Grandma knew. She always knew. Nora nodded. You need to call her lawyer. Now. I pulled out my phone, scrolling to Margaret Ellis's number, Clara's attorney. The voicemail beeped and I left a message, my voice steady. Ms. Ellis, it's Abby Larson. I need to see you about my grandmother's trust. Urgently. As Nora drove, I stared at Grandma Clara's watercolor in my mind's eye, a sunrise promising a new day. I wasn't just fighting for money. I was fighting for me. The morning after the party, I sat in my Rittenhouse Square apartment. The folder from Mom's trap still on my kitchen counter, its leather cover glaring like an accusation. My coffee grew cold as I replayed the night. Mom's fake smile, Dad's nervous grin, Ethan's plea to just sign. Grandma Clara's watercolor sunrise hung on the wall, its soft oranges whispering courage. She'd always known my family's ways, warning me with her sharp, quiet wisdom. If anyone had answers, it was her, even from beyond. I dialed Margaret Ellis, Clara's lawyer, and secured an appointment for noon in Center City. Margaret's office was a haven of oak shelves and law books, perched high above Philadelphia's bustle. A woman in her 60s with silver-streaked hair, she greeted me with a firm handshake and a knowing look. Abby, I've been expecting this, she said, sliding a USB drive across her desk. Clara left this for you, to be viewed if your family tried anything with the trust. My heart thudded as she plugged it into her laptop. Grandma Clara's face filled the screen, her hazel eyes piercing despite her frail frame. Abby, if you're watching this, they've pushed you too far, she began, her voice steady. I left my estate to you, not them, because you're the only one who never asked, never schemed. They'll try to take it. Don't let them. She detailed the Clara Thompson Inheritance Trust, millions in assets, including her stake in Larson & Coben, the family investment firm. Then came the bombshell. If anyone coerces you to forfeit your rights or sues, 50% of the trust transfers to my chosen charities, immediately. I leaned forward, gripping the chair. Clara had built a shield. Your parents have a history, she continued. Check the safe in my old study. The code is your birthday. The video ended, and Margaret handed me a sealed envelope. Clara's instructions. She trusted you to handle this. Back home, I drove to Bryn Mawr, slipping into Clara's old cottage, now a rental but still accessible with my key. The study smelled of lavender and dust, her desk untouched. I punched my birthday into the safe's keypad and it clicked open. Inside were files, bank statements, emails, ledgers, detailing years of my parents' misconduct. Dad had siphoned Larson and Coben funds to cover casino debts, masked as consulting fees. Mom had opened credit lines in the firm's name for personal trips, one to Aruba labeled Client Retreat. Ethan's loans for gambling were funneled through company accounts. My stomach churned. Clara had known, documenting everything to protect me. I sat on the floor, papers spread around me, anger mixing with grief. Clara's love wasn't just in her words. It was in this armor she'd forged. But the betrayal stung deeper now. Knowing my family's greed wasn't impulsive, but calculated. Nora called, her voice grounding me. "What's the plan, Abby?" she asked. I clutched a ledger, my resolve hardening. "I'm calling a family meeting. My terms, my turf. They need to see Clara's truth and face it." Nora paused. "You're sure?" I glanced at the watercolor sunrise in my mind, its light steady. I've never been surer. That night, I emailed Margaret, requesting Clara's second video, the one for the family. She confirmed it was ready, exposing Diane and Robert's financial abuses in Clara's own words. I drafted a text to Mom, Dad, Ethan, and the relatives. "Dinner at my place tomorrow, 5:01 p.m. Let's resolve this peacefully." Mom replied instantly, "So glad you're coming around, sweetheart." I didn't respond. This wasn't about reconciliation. It was about justice. Clara had given me the tools. Now I'd use them to reclaim my future, not just for me, but for the girl she'd believed in all along. My Rittenhouse Square apartment was unrecognizable, transformed into a stage for truth. The dining table was cleared, a borrowed projector aimed at the bare wall, and Clara's second USB sat beside my laptop, its weight heavier than the files I'd found in her safe. I'd texted Mom, Dad, Ethan, and the relatives about a reconciliation dinner at 5:00 p.m., and Mom's reply, "We'll be there, sweetheart," dripped with her usual confidence. She thought I'd cave. But tonight, Clara's voice would speak, and I'd make sure they listened. At 5 sharp, the doorbell chimed. Mom swept in, her emerald scarf a bold choice, her smile practiced. Dad followed, his tie too tight, eyes darting. Ethan shuffled behind, hands in his pockets, avoiding my gaze. Uncle Tom, Aunt Ellen, and Cousin Lila trailed in, their chatter fading as they saw my setup. No food, no warmth, just chairs facing the wall. "Abby, what's this?" Mom asked, her tone sharp beneath the sweetness. I gestured to the seats. "Sit. I want to share something." Nora stood by the door, her presence steadying me. I plugged in the USB and Grandma Clara's face lit up the wall, her voice cutting through the silence like a blade. "Diane, Robert, if you're watching this, you've tried to steal from Abby," she said, her hazel eyes fierce. "I know your schemes, unreported withdrawals from Larson and Co., personal expenses disguised as business costs, credit lines opened without Abby's consent." Mom gasped, her hand clutching her scarf. Dad's face paled. Clara continued, listing specifics. Dad's $30,000 casino transfers, Mom's $15,000 Aruba retreat, Ethan's gambling loans funneled through the firm. "I documented everything," Clara said. "Force Abby's hand, and 50% of the trust goes to charity. Test me, and you'll lose more." The video ended. The room was a tomb. I stepped forward, holding Margaret Ellis's notarized documents. "Dad, you're resigning as CEO of Larson and Coben tonight." I slid a resignation letter across the table. "Sign it, or I send Clara's files to the SEC. Casino debts, fake invoices, all of it." Dad's hand shook, his voice hoarse. "Abby, this is family. We don't air dirty laundry." I leaned in, unflinching. "You made it dirty. I'm cleaning it up." Mom stood, her voice trembling. "You're betraying us after everything we've done." I laughed, cold and sharp. "Done? You used me, my money, my trust, for years. This ends now." Ethan muttered, "Abby, come on, don't do this." I turned to him. "Ethan, you're not innocent. Those loans you got? Company money, not mine." Aunt Ellen whispered, "This is too much." I faced her. "Too much? Clara saw it all. She chose me because she knew you'd never stop." Dad stared at the letter, then at Mom, who nodded, her face tight. He signed, the pen scratching like a confession. I collected the paper, then laid out my terms. No more emergencies, no more calls for cash. All shared accounts are audited, credit cards canceled, the company apartment reclaimed. If you push me, the charity clause activates and I won't hesitate. Mom's eyes blazed. You'll regret this, Abby. I met her gaze. I regret trusting you, not this. I opened the door, signaling the end. They filed out, silent, Mom's heels clicking defiantly. Nora squeezed my arm. You did it, she whispered. I nodded, the weight of years lifting. Clara's watercolor sunrise flashed in my mind, its light now mine to carry. This wasn't just about money or a company, it was about reclaiming the Abbey I'd buried under their demands. As the door closed, I felt free, not from family, but from their chains. The fight wasn't over, but I'd claimed the first victory. Philadelphia's skyline glittered through my office window at Larson & Co., the investment firm Grandma Clara had co-founded decades ago. In July 2026, I stepped into the CEO's chair, the nameplate reading Abigail Larson where Dad's once sat. At 30, I'd transformed the top-floor office into something mine. A sleek desk, a few plants, and Clara's watercolor sunrise on the wall, its hues a daily reminder of who I'd become. The weight of my family's demands was gone, replaced by a purpose I'd carved out one day, one choice at a time. Leading Larson & Co. was no small feat. I restructured the board, rooted out Dad's old cronies, and redirected 20% of profits to the Clara Thompson Foundation, a nonprofit I founded to teach financial literacy and support victims of familial abuse. The board balked at first, but my resolve and Clara's notarized ownership transfer silenced them. The foundation's first seminar, held in a North Philly community center, drew dozens of young adults, their stories of manipulation echoing mine. I stood in the back, anonymous, watching them take notes, and felt Clara's pride from somewhere beyond. My family faded to the edges of my life. Mom sent occasional texts, photos of her rose garden, a recipe for lemon bars, careful, neutral. I replied politely, keeping the distance I'd fought for. Dad called once, his voice rough after a minor surgery. We're trying, Abby. Your mom brags about your work. I thanked him, but their words no longer tethered me. Ethan was the surprise. He showed up at a foundation event, volunteering to set up chairs. His usual swagger softened. I messed up, Abby, he said quietly. I'm learning. I nodded, offering a small smile. Keep going, Ethan, for you. Our bond was thin, but it was honest, no longer tangled in obligation. I built a life from quiet joys. Sunday brunches with Nora at a corner cafe, decorating my apartment with prints I'd chosen. Evening walks along the Schuylkill. My foundation team, bright, driven people who believed in the mission, became my family. Over late-night pizza, we'd laugh about small wins like a kid who'd opened her first savings account. They didn't know my scars, but they saw my strength. And that was enough. Nora asked once, sipping wine on my balcony, Abby, you ever miss them? The old days? I paused, then shook my head. I miss who I thought they were, but I've found better. On my 30th birthday, I woke to sunlight pooling across my desk, a mug of Earl Grey steaming beside a blueberry scone from the bakery downstairs. No grand parties, just me, sketching in a journal Clara had once given me, its pages filled with my dreams, not theirs. I thought of the girl who'd paid their debts, who'd begged for their love. She was gone, replaced by someone who didn't need their validation. I framed a new sketch, a single sunflower, bold and bright, with "You are enough" scrawled beneath in my hand. It hung beside Clara's sunrise, a vow to myself. I called Mom for Christmas, our talk light, her new book club, Dad's golf game, Ethan's part-time job. The calls were a nod to roots, not chains. My real family was here, in Philly's hum, Nora's laughter, my team's passion, the strangers we helped. As I sat in the community center watching a seminar unfold, I knew I wasn't just Abby, the steady one. I was Abby, whole and free, living a life I'd earned. Clara's sunrise glowed in my mind, not as a memory, but as a promise I'd kept, to live for me, unapologetically, and that was more than enough.